So there's another review video that I want to put together. This one has to do with constructing a rational function using some information. Um, so let's say, for example, suppose that y is a rational function. The vertical asymptotes are y equals 6, x equals 6, and x equal -4. The x-intercepts are at x equal, excuse me, yep, at x equal 1 and x equal -1. And the y-intercept is at y equals 4. Okay? So given this information, we can actually construct an entire rational function. All right? So we have y equals, and we're got a fraction. There it is. Okay? So the vertical asymptote tells me the denominator. Okay? That's the denominator. And what we know is vertical asymptote is where the function cannot cross, right? So we cannot have the function at that value. And so consequently, the denominator, and it's when the denominator equals 0. And so the denominator is going to end up equaling 0 when, okay, our linear terms, all right, when we have linear terms for x equals 6 and x equals, and it's not -4, x equals 4, excuse me. So that's going to be x minus 6 and times x minus 4. Okay, so if I have x minus 6 and x minus 4, these linear terms on the bottom, what that's going to give me is that's going to give me a function that will be 0 in the denominator and hence be undefined at those values. Next up, the x-intercepts. Okay, we'll have an x-intercept at x equals 1 and x equals -1. And so this is when the numerator is equal to 0. So that's when the numerator is going to equal 0. And so consequently, we'll get the numerator equaling 0 when we have linear terms for those values. So that's going to be x minus 1, so that's the positive 1, 1, and x minus a -1, okay, for the -1, or x minus 1 and x plus 1. So there it is, we have x minus 1 and x plus 1. Now there's one thing missing, and that is that in a rational function, we're going to have those linear terms in the top and the bottom, okay, and then we're also going to have a coefficient, we'll call it a. So this will be a times x minus 1 times a times x plus 1 all over x minus 6 times x minus 4. To find a, use the x-intercept. Use the y-intercept, excuse me. Use the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So y, which will equal, in this case, 4, equals 0 minus 1, or a times 0 minus 1 times 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 6 times 0 minus 4, okay? And so that's going to end up giving me my a. This is going to give me then that 4 equals a times -1 over positive 24, okay? Then with just a little algebra, we're going to multiply by 24 both sides. All right, so all I did here was just simplify. -1 times 1, that's -1. -6 times -4, that's 24. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through and simplify, and that's going to give me that a is equal to -96. All right, so I just go into my rational function, and that makes it now negative 96. So here, this is that value for a that we use the y-intercept for. Here's the linear terms that we use the x-intercept for, okay? And here are the linear terms that we use the vertical asymptotes for. Remember, vertical asymptotes for the bottoms, x-intercepts for the top, for the numerator, okay? And the constant, or that coefficient here, in this case the negative 96, that's using the y-intercept. All right, so that concludes that video.